Hello, hello.
Superstar.
How are you?
Phenomenal.
That's awesome.
You're looking all purple.
Always.
I love it.
My favorite thing ever. Can't go wrong with purple. It's my favorite color ever.
Yeah, my website's got tons of purple. My book cover's got purple. Yep.
Yes. If you were in my office, you'll see all the purple keyboard, all the things.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. I appreciate you saying yes and being here and being willing to be on my uncut version for my for my YouTube channel that I'm so looking forward to. I like people being able to see the behind the scenes of it all and realize it's really not that hard.
Yeah. Well, I should be thanking you. So you're awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sending all the things that you did. I was blown away. I've never had anybody do that to that capacity. Everything you sent me to be on the podcast. So that was really amazing. I was like, ooh, I really need to step up my game.
No. I've been writing the book for 14 months and I've been working with this group, Brand Builders Group, and they dial you up to making sure that you got your poop in a group.
Well, they did a really good job having everything all together.
Yeah.
Which is really amazing.
Yeah. I've been super blessed to be working with those guys. Yep.
Fantastic. Are you enjoying our cold weather?
No. We were actually in Florida last week looking for the escape home to get out of. My wife's over it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was outside in -7-degree weather this morning shoveling. So
yeah. No, it's a little ridiculous.
I don't mind the light and fluffy stuff this time. The last massive snowfall we had, like that 8+ inches that was so wet, I actually injured myself shoveling the snow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Be careful, sister.
It's crazy. I guess I had popped out a rib on the left side in the front. And I didn't know. And all my pain was on this side because I had pulled a muscle while I was sick from coughing. It was really stupid. And so I go to the urgent care and they're like, we'll give you a shot of, anti-inflammatory and send you home and send you to physical therapy. A couple days later, I take this really big, deep breath and lean like this, and it popped. My rib popped back in, my sternum popped, and oh, lo and behold, I feel better.
Wow.
Doctors don't know what they're talking about half the time.
No.
My husband goes, that's why they call it a practice, because they're always practicing.
Yeah, that's good. Good insight.
You're funny. Well, good luck with finding that place. Did you say Florida?
Yeah. Like Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens area, like north of Fort Lauderdale, like 45 minutes. And then probably in west, like 15-20 minutes. So we got it dialed in. We got
awesome.
the location dialed in. So we just don't know when we're going to pull the trigger, but it's all good.
One of these days when I go to Florida, it's going to be like, I'm going to have to take a whole 2 weeks just to travel from this side to this side, all the way down and back up to see everybody that I know out there, family, friends, all the things. I'm like, it's going to I feel like it's just going to get so heavy. It's going to fall into the ocean.
Yeah. No, everybody's flocking there.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, let me get out to an island somewhere where there's not so many people and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. No, it's super cool. We dig it. We dig it.
That's awesome. So we're going to get into this. I will intro you. I will let you all guide you on how I want you to intro yourself. It's super easy.
Sure.
And then we'll get into your story of overcoming and talk a bit about what you do and who you serve and all that good stuff.
Awesome.
Cool. Hi, and welcome to today's episode. I am Dina Adams, your host, and we have the amazing Chris Felton with us today. I am so honored to have you here. I've recently met Chris, which small world, lives in the next town over. And Chris is a very, I don't know how to describe his personality. because his face doesn't match sometimes what he's saying, right? I think that's the biggest I've ever seen you smile.
That's funny. That's funny. That's
right?
funny.
It's one of those you're
funny.
like, is he okay? Or did I just piss him off? Or no, it's just, he's very intentional, very kind, very humble, and very passionate about helping others be their greatest person that they can be and help them grow in their life so they don't have to settle. And so I feel very honored to have you here. So thank you for being willing to be here and share your story with us.
Well, awesome to be here. And I'm super grateful I met you, and you're an absolute rock star, and I love associating with rock stars like you. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Well, I'm really excited to get into your intro and your story. So first off, if you can tell us who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Yeah, Chris Felton, 51. I'm a recovered CPA. So anyway, have you ever heard that before?
I used to have my own accounting company. I have never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, I'm a recovered CPA. First step's denial, and then you kind of move through the 12th. So I got through the 12th step a few years ago. But grew up in Loveland, Colorado, went to Colorado State University, moved to Denver in 93, and did the corporate CPA thing for 7 years, and then launched my own financial services entrepreneurial business that I've been doing for the last 23 years. And we teach people how to get out of their own way around money and have a better relationship with money. And so I've grown that to about 200 licensed agents. We've helped close to 20,000 people, and it's been awesome. And wrote a book called Couples Money in 2011 with my wife, and just have been on a personal growth and development journey for decades, and decided November 2021 that through the help of a personal development icon named Steve Siebold, real good friend of mine, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've heard you speak for years. You should write a book. I will coach you." So he sold over 3.5 million books, and is just unbelievable rock star. So my content, his coaching, to write something that is hopefully impactful and will help millions of people. That's the goal.
I think that's amazing. I think sometimes we take for granted the opportunities that are put in front of us because our fear of, I don't have enough value to share, or nobody wants to hear my story, or there's, who would want to listen to me? And I think everyone has a story. Everyone has a voice that needs to be heard, because there's always somebody else waiting to hear that story to help empower and inspire them. And I know that after today, there will be people inspired and empowered by your story. And I'm really looking forward to you sharing that today. I'm excited.
Yeah. Thank you, sister.
Absolutely. So you wrote a book.
Yep.
And the book is Think and Grow You. And the subtitle is How to Get Out of Your Own Way and Level Up Your Life. And if anyone listening to this podcast says, I'm never in my own way, and that's so easy, then you can just, click off. You probably don't want to hear this. I'm sure we won't have anybody do that.
that was me 13 years ago anyway, but yeah.
Right. I think we all go through that. We all go through those moments where we can't imagine that we are the problem or that we're standing in our way. But I think it's important to recognize that we are the only ones we have control over. And therefore, we are the only thing standing in our way, because it's our fears, it's our perspective, it's our limitations, it's all that inner stuff that we set aside, we ignore, we don't want to look at. It's too painful, it's too much. Like, I went into self-discovery for that reason. I'm that person that I will help you get to the deepest, darkest parts of your soul, and we're going to find that root cause. And we're going to start healing and recovering from the inside out, as where a lot of people don't understand that that's even a possibility. And so I'm really excited to hear your story of overcoming to get you to this place of where you are in your life, because people can look at you now and go, yeah, he's a 7-figure earner. Yeah, he built this business for all these years. Yeah, now he's, you know, getting ready to move and where him and his wife want to live instead of where they feel they have to live, and all these opportunities that can never happen to me. Yet I want people to really hear what it's taken to get where you are. So often we look at someone's highlight reels and we don't look at
Sure.
their behind the scenes because people don't share their real behind the scenes. And so many people lose the opportunity to be inspired and empowered to keep growing, and they just check out. And so I just think it's when people share their story, there's nothing more powerful.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
would you start off with sharing with us a couple things? One, why did you write your book?
Yep.
Because yeah, it's great that he called and said, "Hey, I think you should write a story." But
Yeah.
I know there's more to it.
Yep.
And then share with us what your story is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, I wrote the book because, you know, having been an entrepreneur for 23 years, and especially when you guys read the book and hear more about it, I know what it's like to be stuck. And especially what we've gone through in the last 3 or so years, right? I mean, pretty crazy times, right? I mean, I think people are more stuck than ever.
Mm.
And I know what it feels like to live in fear, doubt, and worry. I know I also know what it feels like, Dina. I don't know if you can attest to this, but you feel like you're doing everything possible and freaking nothing changes, right? I don't know if you've ever been there, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's just a horrible place to be. And being a coach for the last 23 years, it's painful for me to watch people get so stuck that they feel that quitting on their dream life, their goals, dreams, and aspirations is like the only way. And I was so close to doing that very thing.
Mm.
And the turning point, you know, my story is, you know, I went through a pretty painful and expensive divorce, and my kids were, you know, 1 month old, 3 years old. They, you know, you know, I created the whole disaster, which is the point of the book. You know, my wife, I sabotaged that relationship. You know, she picked up and ended up in Atlanta, Georgia, and I paid her a lot of money, and I was paying her $5,200 a month in child support and alimony, and we're entering the Great Recession. And you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm on the lease. I signed a stupid office lease. I mean, I got 4 or 5 mortgage payments going out basically, and long and the short of it, my second and last wife Marlo steps into a crap show. But I looked successful, and I was playing a pretty good game. But I was $250,000 in credit card debt. I was leaking $4,000 or $5,000 a month. My kids are on the other side of the country. And the boiling point that happened was I was out of money, and I created a disaster, and I had to pay my ex-wife $5,200 the next day, right? Court ordered. And the only way to do that was I had to go home and convince my wife for the money to pay my ex-wife. How do you think that went over?
Well, from the sounds of it, it didn't go over very well. However, if people know me, I would be the one that says, "Okay, no problem." So
Well,
I'm not your typical
well,
person.
you're super sweet, right? But I'm like, I don't know in the history of mankind if
Mm,
any man has ever asked their wife for the money to pay their ex-wife. I don't know if that's ever happened. My wife is 5'1". Everyone's scared of her, including me. She loses it. We call it the purse throwing incident. She throws her purse, breaks some stuff, starts yelling at me, counting on her fingers, all that stuff. And I said, well, why are we still married?
mm.
And total silence. She goes upstairs, for the rest of the night to figure out, should I stay or should I go? And that was the turning point, Dina. That I was just sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I created the whole thing. It was a God moment. I mean, it was like, wherever I've had a problem, I've always been there. Like, I'm the common denominator to all my problems and issues. And I could just see it. I mean, it was just like dominoes falling. I'm like, my ex-wife never had a chance. My kids are paying the price. My money, my clients, my business. I mean, we were in so much financial disarray that, I mean, physically, my wife was getting sick because of the stress. And right then and there, I'm like, dude, you got to change. And I took, 100% responsibility for the disaster in that moment. And then my wife and I came together the next day, and she's like, we're staying together. We're not declaring, bankruptcy. We're not getting divorced. We're not getting jobs. Like, we're going to get this figured out. And, she said, I'm going to interview the wealthy people we know, the wealthy couples. That's where couples money came from. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to figure out what they do, how they think. And then she was like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to figure out how this mindset keeps creating these horrible results. Mm-hmm. And I just said, we will never be back here again. And I'm all in. I'm all in. And I was, and I said, I'm all in like an Olympic athlete is with their sport. And so that's what I did. I'm still kind of psycho about it in a good way, but I mean, I got obsessed. I was just like, I'm done. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick of being broke. I'm sick of being a victim. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of that. I'm going to freaking change this. And so I shifted, and I was up at 4:35. I mean, you name it. I mean, I was up. I was journaling. I was visualizing. I was imaging. If you had told me to stand on my head for an hour, if it was going to help me, I was going to do it. And one of my favorite quotes is from Mel Robbins, and she says, it doesn't happen overnight, but it happens over time. And what happened was, I mean, it was over time, wasn't overnight, but we had a jaw-dropping transformation, financially, me spiritually, me health. I got more energy at 51 than I did at 41, probably even 31. Just everything transformed. So that's the story. And so basically the book is like, hey, here's all these areas of my life that I was stuck. And it's very self-deprecating, and just because it drives me nuts in the personal development space where everyone's on their platform and everything's sunshine, lollipops, and roses, and it's not. And as my mentor was literally reviewing every chapter, reviewing everything, he spent 20 hours on the fourth draft, just himself. He said, dude, this thing's amazing. Like, he's like, nobody shares their dirty laundry like you do. And it's going to help a lot of freaking people. And that's why I'm so jazzed about it.
That's incredible. That's incredible. You have a quote in the book: we're a miracle and a mess at the same time. That's very moving to me. And so I'd love for you to expand on that and tell us what that means. Because a lot of times people think that you're either great or you're not, and you can't be both at the same time.
Yeah, and I sold that. I use him. I quote him often in the book. A guy named Jonathan Mansky, great coach, great friend. Just did a lot of amazing work with me. So that's his quote. But it's perfectionism is a form of self-sabotage, and we didn't come to this planet to get perfect. And I think people spend a lot of time, what do you say when you talk to yourself, right? It's the beating themselves up, and the conversations in their mind and their head, and the limiting stuff that people vocalize and verbalize, and as you know, like you would never talk to somebody else the way you sometimes talk to yourself. And you just, it's powerful to just get in this place of accepting you for, you know, the good and the bad, and fully loving, approving, and accepting of yourself. And so, you know, Jonathan said that, I can't remember when he did it, but he said, man, we're a miracle and a mess at the same time. And, you know, there's great parts of me. There's stuff that's, you know, not so great. But that's part of the human condition. And the quicker that we can just fully embrace and accept ourselves, man, life works so much freaking better when we shore that up. And that's, you know, part of the journey, and part of the stuff I share in the book is, you know, how did I get there?
I completely agree. I think it brings into focus that a lot of times we're raised to believe that if we've screwed up or we've done things that other people think or believe are horrible, even if the justice system says it's horrible, there's always opportunity to be your best self, even in the worst moments. Like we always have an opportunity to choose differently, to shift our thinking, change who we are becoming, because who we have become is based on everything we've experienced. And now we get to choose who we become next. And I really like that when you mentioned earlier, like you chose to shift your thinking. You made a choice in that moment. And so often, so many people are not willing to take responsibility. A lot of people believe, and I've heard this so many times with clients that I've worked with and just peers, that they don't want to take 100% responsibility because they believe they're taking 100% responsibility for everything going on. When what it really is you taking 100% responsibility for your actions and all of the things going on, and you leave the other people to take responsibility for themselves, whether they do it or not is their choice. Would you agree
Yeah.
that's valid?
Yeah, perfectly said. Right.
I think that's
Control
awesome.
what you, yeah, control what you can control, right? And that's a chapter in my book too. Stop controlling.
That's so hard.
Because because I was you know, I'm a fully recovered control freak. And it's just, man, it's freaking exhausting to try to manipulate everything. Right. Especially when I was manipulating the furniture on the deck of the Titanic, right? That's just worthless.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love that you're willing to share because, like I said in the very beginning, I don't know if I said this on the YouTube side of things or the podcast side of things before we got started or not, but when it comes down to, and I just lost my train of thought. So this is, fantastic. Hold on. It will come to me at some point. I mentioned it earlier. It's really important. We'll get back to it, I guess, because now my brain is like, no, I'm not going to let you speak about that right now. So let's move forward. When it comes to now that you've moved through all of this, you've overcome so many things. Oh, highlight reels. That's what I was going to talk about. You share very authentically and you're very willing to share the behind the scenes. Most people only share their highlights, right? So when we're watching people on social media, we're showing up to their events, we're doing all that. We see their highlights because let's be honest, we're not going to bring all of our crap to the table all the time, right? So how do you help people when they say, well, I'm seeing all these people and they're in comparison mode, they're in that imposter syndrome, right? And they're like, but I can't ever be what you are and I can't ever do what you do. And I'm seeing all these people and all the great things. I don't have anyone that I can really connect with that's ever gone through. They say they've gone through it, but I can't tell that they, that it's real. Like, how do you help people when they're really feeling stuck with not being able to see anyone that's like them who's made it and who's achieved that? Like, how do you help support them through that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny. I was, I was trying to connect with this client referral. I mean, it's literally been months. It's unbelievable. Like our schedules just can't line up.
Mhm.
And it wasn't going to work today. And then, magically we got on and we talked, and she's she's a doctor with a thriving practice, and she's a good looking lady, super sharp, has it all together. But, she shared what was going on. And I told her, I'm like, sister, like, when we show up, and actually I talk about in the book, and this, I mean, I think this relates. I talk about deservingness, right? Like, and how I got over that. And I think if you have these thoughts, you're talking about the root is deservingness. And what I communicated to her, and she she's got a supportive, group around her, and professionals and family, and everybody sees what I see, but she somehow doesn't see it.
Mhm.
And you hear that all the time. And I said, sister, you probably don't feel like you deserve it. So we're talking about this, but the root is she doesn't really deserve it. I'm like, when you showed up on this planet as a baby, did you have deserving issues? No, right? I cry, I get fed, right? I dirty my diaper, it gets handled, right? You don't have some deserving thing. And then, 3, 4, 5 years of age, you're bad girl, bad boy, bad this, you're not that, right? And you couldn't defend yourself. So you bought the BS, and then the belief systems hardened. And then, but hey, welcome to being human. That happens to everybody.
Yeah.
So what I talk about in the book is I finally just called BS on all of it. And I just said, I don't like the results I'm getting. I'm creating the results with my thinking. That's it.
Right.
Right. One of my favorite, formulas is me plus a thought equals a result. And so there's you and the result. So for example, my result was broke. There was me. There was broke thinking. And so, like I told her, I'm like, because she wants to go to the next level, but she's holding herself back. And I said, I'm like, here's what's helped me, sister. And there's a lot of this in the book. Grab a journal, write down what you're working with, and write down everything you're making up about it. And we kind of did that a little bit. And I'm like, and when you see it on paper, it's total crap. And so for the person that's like, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, that's the stuff you got to get written down. That's the stuff that you got to get in front of you. And it's limiting. And if you're honest, it's huge. I had a huge list around all sorts of things. But my coach said, hey, you don't have a problem, you have a project. And so this shifting of thinking is a project. And so first step is writing down what you're making up about success, money, whatever. And then just understanding that, hey, we're a miracle in a mess. It's okay. Those are your thoughts. But we have to start the process of shifting our thinking to get different results. And then, so that's what I was working with her today. And she was inspired because I'm like, sister, it's a law. You can change your thinking and get different results. So the people that say I can or whatever, you can, you just got to quit holding yourself back.
Right. Right. And I think it's so easy for us to hold ourselves back, especially when we are not very self-aware and we are constantly in that blame game of everyone else is responsible. And I think a lot of times it's really hard to, and this took me forever to realize, was that everything in my past, I was blaming everything that ever happened to me for everything in my world. Not that there wasn't any responsibility to be had by anybody else of things that I went through and what I experienced. Yet I realized that yes, things happen to me, people make decisions and it affects me. And then I get the opportunity to choose how I move forward. whether I take that with me as my truth or if I leave it on the side of the road and be like, I don't really need that. That is a very, very challenging thing to do. And it's very hard to come to that awareness when you don't have the guidance or support of someone else helping you, especially when you feel like you're really alone and you've tried all the things, right? You talked about that earlier. Like I went through therapy and I did, therapy, counseling, psychologists, psychiatrists, medications, all the things, listen to everybody in my world, try to tell me how to do everything better as a mom and a wife and a person. And I felt like that was my entire life, my entire life. And it wasn't until I was sitting on the floor in my living room with a 3-month-old, 3 older kids, a new husband, new baby, I have these kids that love me and a husband who loves me, and I'm miserable and I don't know what's wrong with me. Right? I think if we all sit down, because a lot of people will say they don't have a story. Right? So whoever's listening, I just want to encourage you that if you sit and give it space, your story will present itself. You'll see the turning point where you had the thought or you recognize something had to be different. It doesn't have to be this big, phenomenal, mind-blowing experience. I literally sat there and said, God, what do I do? And he's like, it's time to change. That has been my focus ever since 21 years. That has been my focus.
It's powerful.
And so when people are hearing you talk about this woman that you were coaching and going through this, I would love for you to share how to effectively use a coach. I don't think a lot of people don't really know what a coach is. They think coach, and these days, everybody's a coach online.
Sure.
Right?
Everyone's a guru.
Right. But you've got teachers and you've got, all these different types of people showing up online saying they're a coach. And then you go through and you're like, they're not coaching me at all. So I'd love for you to share what that means with how to use a coach effectively.
Yeah. I mean, I had to get one because once again, I didn't like my results. Right. And one of the things that caused me to change, which you kind of were talking about that when you're on the floor, is who's paying the price for me showing up this way. Right. And that was you reaching out to God to say, what do I need to do? And he's like, you got to change, because your family's paying a price for you being miserable. Right. And for me being so financially inept and being a financial advisor and a CPA, right. So if you don't connect the prices that others are paying, you're probably not going to change. And I said, that's too heavy. And so then I reached out I started entertaining who could coach me, and everybody wanted to coach me. But I wanted to make sure they had mastery in the area that I wanted help with. And that was financial freedom. And so everyone's like, oh, is this? I'm like, are you free? No. Okay. You're not living the results I want. So finally my coach shows up through total hand of God moment, but he shows up, and I was so in my ego and I was so all about getting the approval of other people. I wasted his time. Well, I no-showed him on our first call, which is awesome.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to look at my stuff, right? Because because middle-class thinking is I don't want to feel bad about myself.
Right.
So I'm going to distract myself, right, with our phones, right, the weapon of mass distraction, and we're going to not want to look at it because we don't want to feel bad about ourselves. But if you don't look at it, it doesn't get any better. And so I spent a bunch of time once I engaged him trying to prove to him how smart I was, and I was putting up the armor and all that. And then so a couple things here. So I hired him because we needed to double our income and we needed to save money. I was really clear on what I wanted and why, most importantly, why. And so our first coaching session, Dina, he's like, hey, did you save any money last week? And I'm like, no, coach, we didn't have any money to save. It's pretty good, right? Pretty good reason. He's like, dude, you've been using that excuse for like 15 years. How much longer are you going to let that run you? And he said, you need to save money. And I said, I know that. And if we would have been live, he would have punched me, because he said, you don't ever say that again. You don't know it, right? You don't know it. I know that, right? We learned that in school, very reflexive response, because we don't want to look stupid, right? He said, I'll know you know it when you're living the results. He said, you say that one more time, I'm firing you and I'm keeping your money.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he knew when to hug and knew when to kick.
Yeah.
So I was like, amen. Never said that again. So that was huge. I had to have beginner's mind. I had to act like I was in 5th grade, right? Or kindergartner. And then we had a weekly coaching session, and he had to grind out of me every week what the results were, what I said, all this stuff. I had excuses, defensive. And finally, about 6 months into it, I'm like, oh, dude, why is he having to pull out of me? This is freaking ridiculous. And so he would run me through all these questions that are in my book. And so I think we were like 6 months in, I finally got it. And so coach said, okay, what's going on? I said, coach, here, I'll lead this. I said I was going to do this last week. I didn't do it. Here's what became more important than me keeping my word. All right?
Yeah.
Here's what became more important than me keeping my word. However, here's what I learned. This is what I'm going to do different moving forward. Will you keep coaching me? That's what we did. That's the ultimate objective reality question. That was it. And so I coach people all the time, and I'm like, did you or didn't you? Yes or no? What became more important than you keeping your word? What'd you learn from that? What's going to be different moving forward? And super powerful.
That is very powerful. I think oftentimes we don't really I didn't know there was such thing as a coach back when I started this whole process. I didn't know there was a thing as self-discovery. I just knew everywhere I was turning, I wasn't getting the results I was looking for. And too often people are wanting the result of someone else justifying their actions to make them feel better about their choices. They're not really wanting someone who's going to make them feel convicted and be like, oh, that hurt. Like, people don't want to feel uncomfortable. And so I will say that when it comes to looking for a coach, for me too, like, I want someone who's going to be willing to get into that with me. They're going to be willing to ask me the hard questions, hold me to the fire,
Yep.
and help pull out of me what needs to be pulled out of me that I obviously haven't been able to pull out of myself yet, right? We all have growing to do always. I think we should all have a coach half the time. I think we all should have a therapist too, because they do have different purposes. And I think the more we can do to help ourselves be better people, the more self-aware we become, the better we show up in our environment, the better we can serve other people, our clients, and be better for our family, and just all around. It's just a better thing for ourselves.
Yeah. Amen. We all have blind spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will all always have blind spots, right?
Yeah.
If you're someone that says I don't have any blind spots, then you have probably more blind spots than anybody.
Yeah, that's your big blind spot, is you don't have any blind spots, or you don't think you do.
Right, because you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know it's a blind spot, how do you know it's an issue? So if you think you have no blind spots, then that's your indication that you have blind spots and you need how you need some support through that, right?
Yep.
So I think that's amazing. You have you shared some things with me, and I want to ask this question because we didn't really touch on it during this conversation. And I know it's something that we all do. We all worry, right? You mentioned fear, you mentioned doubt, you mentioned all of those things. Yet we worry. So in the midst of this struggle, in the midst of this fight that we're dealing with, in the midst of whatever challenge we're facing, no matter how good things get, a lot of times we're waiting for the other shoe to drop and we're always in that worry mode. So to wrap this up, I would love for you to share with us how we can stop. Is it even possible?
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, my passion became, I wanted to prove that I could actually could control my thinking. Right. And I'm not 100% there, but I have a pretty quiet brain. You know, because of the work that I've done. I don't have a lot of chatter in there. I'm very aware of judgment, and I just, you know, I'm very aware of my ego's not my amigo, and it's not going to lead me to anywhere that's good. So, in the story of worry, I think it's the first chapter in the book, and it was, you know, I was getting ready. I won an incentive trip. I was getting ready to go on an Alaskan cruise with my company. And I'm in the middle of divorce negotiations, and we haven't even left the dock yet. And my attorney calls me, and she didn't have the best bedside manner. And she said, well, your ex has hired, you know, the most high powered attorney in Florida, and they're going to wipe you out. Literally.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, what the freak? And I didn't have a lot of wiggle room. And, you know, she came from a lot of money, and dad was, you know, pissed at me, as he should have been. And,
Right.
you know, they were out for blood, so to speak. At least that's what I made up about it. And the waves of worry and stress. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to jump over the boat and swim back to Colorado. Like, I'm just, you know, and I'm like, okay, so we're a couple days in the trip. We stop in, you know, Sitka, Alaska. It's 60 degrees out. It's freaking gorgeous there. And there's a picture, Dina, I got to find it, of me taking a photo with my friends, and the look on my face just said it all. I was in so much fear. And I got back to the boat, and I'm like, I am freaking done with this. And that's a very powerful statement. I'm done with this. So I grabbed books, a journal, pen and paper. I went to the theater of the ship. I think I was there for 7-8 hours. And I'm like, I'm shifting. I am not going to be freaking miserable for the next 4 or 5 days. And about that time, I picked up Dale Carnegie. I think it was like cassette tapes or something I was listening to. Right. How to stop worrying and start listening. And I ran through his process, and it's in the book as an action step. What are you worried about? That's the first question. So I just kind of ripped through it, right? Spent time on that. I'm worried about financial collapse. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about seeing my kids, you know, whatever. And then he was like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, the worst thing that can happen is, you know, I'm wiped out, this, whatever. It's painful. I got to get a job, you know, whatever. And, you know, and all fear is whatever happens, I won't be able to handle it. That's all fear. And it's total crap. We're totally capable. And then his next question was, well, if that happened, what would you do? I was like, well, just tee it up. I got my health. I got some skills, whatever. I just rebuild. I wouldn't have a choice. I'd rebuild. And then I wrote down what he recommended. 99% of what I worry about never freaking happens. And then I tore up the paper. I threw it in the trash, walked out of that theater, and I'm like, I'm done. I made a choice, conviction, And I had an amazing rest of the 4 days. And anytime that little worry would creep back in, I'd just be like, not now, course correct, redirect. 99% of what I worry about never happens. Now, was there some pain that happened? Absolutely. But without that pain and waking my ass up, nothing would have happened. I needed the jolt to grow. I needed that. But it wasn't anywhere near what I was projecting it to be. So that's an incredible process. And I cover a lot of those techniques in the book of just like stop, time out, inventory, see how ridiculous. I've been recording the stories my ego makes up. I have a whole journal on it. I've been recording the stories for a decade plus. I write stuff down in the heat of the moment. I let it sit. I come back 3, 5, 10 days later. I reread what I wrote. It's as if an alien invaded my freaking body. I'm like, who the hell wrote that? No, you did, jackass. Because, right? Because you got triggered. You were going down the rabbit hole. You're making up stuff. Anyway, there's a lot to cover there, but
yeah,
it's
I appreciate you sharing that with me. I think a couple of things that I want to share that I took away from that I think are important for people to hear is the time invested, right?
Absolutely.
You not only invested money to purchase something that helped you, you invested the time, you invested the emotions, the feelings, the mental, the physical, all of that stuff into how do I change this? So many people expect a light switch resolution, and those are never permanent. They're only for a moment. And I think it's so important that if you've been trying to stop worrying, you've been working on shifting your mindset, you've been working on through all of this, any coach you work with, we're going to have things for you to do. We're going to call you out on stuff. However, if you're not willing to put in the time, the effort, and actually do the work outside of the coaching calls, it's never going to get you the results of transformation that you are looking for.
Yeah. And that's my pervasive message, in the book is humility is super important. I had to humble down, right? You got to get humble. You're right. You don't have all the answers, but my message is you got to be willing to change. You got to do the work. But my last part of that message is it's worth it. Because I think a lot of people are like, is it really going to be worth it? And I had a lot of things going against me, but I did have that mindset that it was going to be worth it. And it's been more than worth it, beyond my wildest dreams.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know there's going to be people that are like, oh my gosh, he's my person I've been waiting for, right? We all have this feeling that we're looking for. I think a lot of times we know in our head what we want, or we don't really know what we want, but we think we know when we see it. But there's a feeling that you have of alignment. When you hear someone, you hear how they talk, you hear their story, you hear where that is, and you're like, oh, this is the person I've been looking for 10 years, right? But you weren't ready 10 years ago, which is why you never heard of Chris Felton, right? You didn't hear of him until you were ready for him, or you heard of him, but you weren't at a mental place that you could say, oh, this is the right time. So I greatly appreciate your time. If you guys want to get connected with Chris, all of his information, links, offers, everything will be in the comments below. Take the time, check it out, click a link, get connected. Getting connected with him is well worth every second that you spend. So thank you again for your time. I am very honored that you were willing to spend that with us.
Yeah, no, sister, I'm honored to be here, and you're a blessing to a lot of people. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And that is the end of the podcast. Thank you. I love that. That was so amazing.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, the uncut version will be on YouTube. The edited podcast, which it doesn't get edited much. It really like cut off the front, cut off the back, and we go for it.
Yeah,
I'm all
as you
about
should.
authentic,
Yeah,
right?
as
And
you
making
should.
it easy.
Yeah.
So those will both launch in February, and I'm looking forward to your launch in March. I haven't gone anywhere to anything forever,
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah.
I've loved
Awesome.
it because I hate being in social situations. I'm very
Yeah.
socially awkward. I'm the one in the corner of the wallflower. If people want to say hi, they can. Otherwise, I'm good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
coming down. So
Awesome to have you.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to getting to meet you in person.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be great, sister. Yeah. Be
Yeah,
great
it'll
to
be awesome.
have your energy and love there. That'll be awesome. Thank you.
And my energy is very different in person than it is on a screen when I'm in a space by myself.
You'll love it. It'll be a great crew of people. So
It'll be a great experience. I don't think I've been to a live book launch before, so
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to it. So yeah, lots of work to do. But yeah, thanks, sister. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you too and your time. If there's anything that I can do to support you, never hesitate to reach out and let me know.
Yeah. No, you've been a huge help. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching. Click the subscribe button now so you will know when we drop new videos, and we'll see you next time.